Why don't you do the poetic quote now, and then if you would like, and then it'll be
We'll
able to get back.
stay on for just a few minutes after that.
Okay.
Okay. I want me to tell you all. I need to tell you all that when he passed away last night at around 11 o'clock.
Oh,
Um,
I'm
she
so
was
sorry.
not in pain. She was peaceful. She was really suffering the day before, but she was peaceful and resting this last day and sleeping. And we got to say our goodbyes. And here's the quotation. The only one I can think of right now is the one that King Charles II said when his mother died just a few weeks ago. And here now cracks noble heart. Good night, my sweet Wendy, and may flights of angels speed thee to thy rest. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I will let Sue know when class is over, and we'll be in touch with you. Okay.
The funeral will probably be on Wednesday, but we'll let you know when the arrangements are announced.
I understand because of the holidays. By the way,
I really thought about coming here or not coming here, and I thought this is part of my family. I have to be here just for now.
we consider you family, and extend our entire group's condolences to you and to the rest of the family.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And are you going to have people over, or how are you going to handle this?
Well, I'm up. We're not leaving the house today, and our family is slowly beginning to get up, and we will be here today. I know we're having at least one group of friends is coming this afternoon, but anytime after the Torah study ends, we'll be here. You know where we are. It is the Vale extension of Beth Shalom in a way, and it will have to be that way for a few days and Shiva will be here. The funeral will probably be Wednesday, right after Rosh Hashanah, and I want to wish you all Lashana Tova Tikatevu. May God inscribe you all in the book of life for a year of health, happiness, peace of mind, and all that you might wish for. Thank you so much for letting me be on now.
Thank you, David. I'm going to say I have heard that when someone passes away at the time of the high holidays, that it is God's way of saying this is a righteous person.
Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome. I've heard that.
I'd like to share my story, which has become pretty popular in the last few days. Can I share with the group the story about the motorcycle? And there's some basis to this, although most of it is just in my own David brain. But Einstein, as you know, in his thought experiments, very often used the concept of starting by saying we're traveling at the speed of light through space on a motorcycle. I believe he really did think that. And a couple of weeks ago, we were going to Green Valley, actually, where most of you live, for one of Wendy's final treatments. And on the way there, we were on Swarita Road, and there was really nothing there. There was really no traffic, but there was a large truck in front of us, and I was going to pass the truck. And Wendy said, "David, we're not in a hurry. Slow down. Just stay behind him." which is what I did. And then my little David brain produced this image of a motorcycle between the car, the truck, and us. And so I slowed down a little bit more to give the motorcycle more room. And then I'm trying to brush the damn motorcycle out of my brain, but it kept on coming back. It kept on coming back, and then the motorcycle was surrounded by some kind of a vapor, but still moving, and I could see the person driving the motorcycle, and that was God on a motorcycle. And now I was really struggling to get rid of the image. I couldn't do it. And then when we got back home, there was God sitting in the living room, and he said, "So how did I do?" And I said, "You mean on the motorcycle?" And he said, "Yeah, how did I do?" And I said, "Well, you're perfect. You're actually the safest motorcycle driver I've ever seen. But you know how to do everything. Why are you asking me that?" And he said, "I may be God, and I may know how to do everything, but I do not know how to ride a motorcycle, and I had to learn how to do that so that I could take care of you and Wendy." And I still can't get the image out of my mind. I see it everywhere. Thank you for letting me share this.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for that.
You're among, David, you are right now among very good friends
I know that.
That-
I feel
that-
that.
that love you.
And the damn motorcycle is on the session as well, with someone riding on it, waving it. God with Wendy.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Yeah.
Michael.
I better leave. I need to get out because this is really just getting a little bit difficult. But God bless you all, and we'll probably see you soon.
Okay. We love you, David.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Helene,
Yes, Helene, you wanted to say something.
I wanted to say something to David
I'm still here.
and when my life, what I know, because Elizabeth Bird Browning, the one who invented hospice, was my friend. And she taught me something that I will pass on to you now and your sweet wife. That she had her hand on children and people as they died. She was the most famous person about hospice in the world. And she taught me this, that as long as there's pure love surrounding the person who is leaving, and as long as there's touching, as long as they can be touched, they will feel the energy, the strength, and the beauty of love. And love is the only thing, she said, that enriches you and brings you up to heaven, because the body is vibration. It's the soul inside. It's the spirit that rises to heaven when there's a good person there being loved. And your wife is being loved so much. So in many ways, I'm grateful that she is being sent to heaven with beauty.
I'll never forget those words, and I'll never forget you. And I love you all. I'm looking at all of your faces that I've seen almost every Saturday. Rabbi Miri, and I know that Rabbi Roman can't make it this morning, but I'll be in touch with him later today. Thank you so much, Ricky, all of you, Michael, all of you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, David. We wish you well, and I will let Sue know. Should we call first?
No.
Just
Someone
come.
will be at the house all day.
All right. Thank you.
We have a house full of family, and all of us, some of us will be here all day.
Okay,
You don't have to call, just come. Thank
sounds good.
Thank you. Shalom
What I'm
to
going
you.
to read now is our opening prayer for Torah study. And Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. You know, it's hard for me because over the past several years, Wendy and David and Sue and I have become very, very close friends, and it's been very difficult. But Torah study must go on, and so we need to. We are in Exodus 22, verse 19. And I'm going to ask if someone can read. Oh, wait a minute.
219, I have it as 2227.
Yeah, 20. Yes, you are correct. You are correct. So 2227. Just 2227.
You shall not revile God, nor put a curse upon a chieftain among your people.
Okay. What is this about? Is it a restatement? Well, you don't want to do anything that's going to diminish the importance of God. However you envision God is going to be very important. And this goes back to the first few commandments. What is the first commandment?
Be fruitful and multiply.
That is, you can say that I was referring to the commandments in Exodus.
Oh, of the 10 you were referring to.
Yes.
I am a jealous God.
I'm your God. I'm your God.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that this is a restatement of this. There are some other commentaries on this that Josephus suggested, because with regard to the word Elohim, and he says the suggestion by, and this is Plout speaking, he says that Josephus has suggested that Elohim here suggests gods with a small capital. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary. We are on Exodus 22, verse 27. And so it suggests that Jews should respect the gods of the pagans. It is contrary to the spirit of the Bible, which insists that pagan gods are worthless. Now, if we think in those terms, what is being said here? We have spoken about a word before, about the word respect. And if someone else has a different belief, we have our own belief. But if someone else has another belief, how are we supposed to approach that?
Well, I think that what's happening here is that we want others to respect our position. See? And if we don't respect their position, there's a likelihood they will not respect our position.
Very interesting. Very good. So you're saying respect is a two-way street.
Absolutely. The word respect applies to everybody, not just one person or one particular group, I would think, because respect is a very powerful, it could prevent wars, for crying out loud. I mean,
Sure.
you know, it's a very, very important, very
Very good.
on the highest terms.
Very good, Michael. Thank you. Yes, Don.
Good morning. Sad morning. Rabbi Mary, I wonder if you could give your translation of that verse.
Which were? Which one you want
Hello,
me to translate?
27. that we just read.
27. If you have something that you could add to this.
22.
27. I think that we can. I think that we can say, as you guys were saying, the issue of respect. At the same time, I want to point out about one of my professors, Friedman, that talks about the issue of monotheism versus polytheism. So we are in an era that we are part of El. Everywhere that starts with El and finishes with El is connected with God. You know, the Muslims say Allah, and then we call the angels Raphael and Uriel. So the word El appears in all the societies at the same time. And it's interesting, the transition between the belief that we are part of a group, or we are there and there is no else. And that comes back. It's a troublesome, as Marty said, because when you go to the 10 Commandments, it says, I'm God and there are no others. But maybe there are no others for you, and not the recognition that there are others. This is really at the point that we can look at this. I'm still very upset, so I might not say myself too clearly. If we are, this is our God, and this is my contention about our, okay? And it can be our among, and as Michael said, you know, there are many and we should respect the others. And when they said, I'm your God, that's a different story. You are chosen for me and I'm chosen for you, and this is our relationship. Does it help, Don?
A bit. I was wondering if you could go a bit further, and hopefully I have the right. This is the verse that commands us not to blaspheme God. Is that?
Yes, that's what I was going to discuss next. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah. So I'm wondering how you would go from the Hebrew to the English on that particular verse, Rabbi.
The word Elohim is in plural, Don.
Okay.
So it could be that it says, you shall not curse Elohim, gods.
But
At one point in the Torah, there is a change, and that's Friedman tries to explain that it moves from Adonai, which is also in plural, Adonai, and Elohim is also in plural. So there you have to decide if God for you is encompassing everything and everyone, or it's part of that group. So that Elohim you shall not curse, and the Nasi is troublesome. What word do you have for after curse?
The words I'm reading in this translation are ruler of your people.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
okay, that comes second.
Yeah,
That comes second. We're still
yeah,
discussing
it's
God.
like, yeah, it's one, Nasi is like a minister in your people. You should not cast anyone, the
Right.
minister of transportation or the minister of that or the, because they were with tribes. And for me, as I look at it more and more, is a troublesome verse, as you're pointing
Mhm.
out, because
Yes.
it's not a parallel. It's not, you shall not curse the gods and you shall not curse the Nesi'im. So I'll need to check why, you see, it's not God versus Nasi. It's not, you shall not curse this and you shall not curse that, because God and Nasi, God and minister, they are not equal. So I don't understand that. I need to dwell into it. I didn't prepare.
Okay,
Okay,
that's very
thank you.
helpful. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Yes, Ricky, you bounced across my screen.
Yeah, mine, okay, I've got the Stone edition. You shall not curse a leader among your people. And the footnotes, the sages derived from the word Elohim in this verse refers to judges as well as God. Thus, although it is forbidden to curse anyone, the Torah singles out judges and leaders because their responsibility to render decisions and enforce judgment makes them vulnerable to the imprecations of those whom they rule against. So judges is an issue here.
What
Judges is a good word. Yeah, Ricky, because the word judge is very much connected with Elohim. Elohim is a judge of the world and so forth. And the
Right.
Nasi'im, they could very well be that the direction is about judges. I'll keep looking at it because usually the parallels are very parallel. And here it's, I don't know, it's kind of forced. I'll keep reading on that one.
One of the things that we tend to do is we tend to, if when bad things happen, let's put it this way, when bad things happen, do we blame ourselves, the elements? Do we blame God for doing that?
Well, it depends what this, what the bad is. Because the bad, I would think, comes in different levels.
Yes,
Let's take the Holocaust.
sure.
That's something bad, and many people tend to blame God because of this.
There was a group that did. When people pass away, there's a tendency to say, God, why did you let this happen? Is that too selfish to ask of God?
No, it's not, because let's look at David right now. He's suffering.
Yes.
He's suffering very much, and so do about all of us when we lose somebody who's very precious to us. It's a way of, it's not, you blame God, but it's not really blaming God, but you have nothing left. You're trying to go to the highest source to blame for something with the loss of another life. It seems to me.
Yeah.
And and you're really not doing that. You just, what you're doing is in my opinion, you're just reaching out to whatever you can grab onto to ease your pain in a way.
Before I get to Don, I just want to say, so what is the Jewish way when somebody dies?
Oh.
Kaddish.
We praise God. The
Yes,
Kaddish is praising God.
yes,
It's nothing to do with the dead person or
That's
with
right.
those remaining. I'm sorry, Gail, you had your hand up.
go ahead. I wanted to that what you said, and I didn't want to. So much is going on in my head right now that I didn't want to lose it. So, Don, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, we're all a little distracted.
Yeah.
The Jews invented the guilt trip, so we, most of us just take it on.
Actually, I would say that in Italian, it's Mediterranean. Okay, because Italian families and Greek families and Arabic families do the same thing.
But swinging back around to that verse, there are many pivotal verses in this chapter, I think, but this one in particular gets me because it raises the question of, are Jews inherently superior, or do we have a live and let live attitude to the rest of the world? And I like to think the Jews are live and let live. We don't consider ourselves superior. We just obey the law as best we can. And this verse seems to reinforce that view, in that we don't curse God, our God. We don't curse anybody's God. People are entitled to believe as they will, but we're going to follow our own God.
There are several hands that have been raised, but what you triggered in my mind is Jewish activism. We partake in trying to correct ills in the world. And that is part of, if you will, a mission statement. I don't know who had the hand up first, David or Gail.
No, Michael.
I mean Michael.
Gail.
I'm sorry.
Gail.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. When Don, when you said the live and let live, that's a very good a statement, and you could see it when in the proselytizing, because we live and let live, because we don't knock on someone's door and say become a Jew. We don't do that, because we live and let other people live their lives by doing that in that one area, and there are so many more. But you could see it because we do not, as Jews, proselytize. Look for people to come to join us. If someone wants to be a Jew, they come to us. We don't go to them.
Okay, very good, Michael. Yes, Gail.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to when you were talking about when bad things happen. And my philosophy about that's just part of life.
Yeah.
It's not, bad things happen, good things happen. That's life. And you don't blame somebody for
That's right.
life. And to go to, Mary, I'm going to ask you something. We're talking about Elohim being plural. If God, this is a question, if God is everything and everywhere, Okay. Then he's many things, plural. Okay. So I'm not sure that that's a contradiction.
No, no. And, we should, this is my personal philosophy about the issue of the name of God. You remember when Moshe stands in front of the burning bush and God says, go and tell them. And he says, well, but they're going to ask me, who are you? What's your name? And what's the answer there? I'll be who I'll be. In my personal translation, since it's in the future tense, I'll be what needs to be at that time, at that place. That's what I'll be. Or I'll be what you think that I am. It's not I am who I am, because that's very definite and you cannot play with it. But if you say, hey, yeah, I'll be who I'll be, then it opens that to each one of us. It opens it also to people that are not Jewish, or what we call today Jewish. So, no, you know what, Gail, in my world, nothing contradicts nothing, anything. You can work with things, and you're right. I mean, I don't remember, I recently read this book about the issue of how we dread death without thinking that it's really, you don't have a say when you're born, and you don't have a say when you die or how you die, or, and so now it builds on our belief. Oh, it's predetermined that's how I'm going to die. It's predetermined. It was God that did it. The other thing that we say in the Talmud or in the words of our wise fathers, not mothers, probably mothers, is when we are angry, do not judge us. Don't say when you are angry, and we say this to people, when you are angry, don't make important decisions. When you are in pain, you don't ask that. And when you are in pain, you can even curse God. That's human nature, is to find a reason for the pain and the suffering. And Michael, as you said, even during the Holocaust, I mean, the issue of cursing God was so common among the people. Who shall we blame? Why this is happening to me? And there is that book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. You can read that one. And the blessing of God, even when someone dies. It's a very complicated thing. And I claim that God is what each one of us think is God. And the same thing with how we react to difficult pain. The other source that I suggest, if you have not read, is Job.
Mm-hmm.
Job suffers and suffers and suffers. And what do their friends say to him? Come on, Job, curse God and die. Enough of this suffering. And he keeps believing. But it will be for them. Curse God and get out of here. How can you suffer so much? And we know that. Marty will tell you of people that are suffering so much, is sick, that says, please unplug me. I cannot take this anymore. So the issue of suffering and death, it's a very complicated one. And in my book, it's such a personal way of coping with life and with death. And we shouldn't, even if David will come now and say, I don't deserve that. I was a good guy. I was a good husband. Why God did that to me? It's a natural reaction, it's so much pain in it that, what can I say? And
you
I
took
apologize for speaking so long.
no, Mary, that's what I was leading up to, because this dovetails into exactly that encounter between Moses and the burning bush. Because how you see God is the way God will be, as Rabbi Mary said. And I think it's a very important concept. And I think that it's good. And also your leaders. You may not care for the leader that is there, but you are not to curse or revile the leader of what, and you can say whether it's a judge, if it's the mayor of a city, if it is the president. You don't do those things. You don't do those things. Why? That dovetails into the next discussion, the answer to that question. Why do you not curse your leaders or revile them? Yes, Don.
I will try to answer that. I want to just back up for a second and
Oh, sure.
and qualify what Michael said about Jews proselytizing, because there was a period between the destruction of the two temples, especially the Hellenistic period, when Jews were very much trying to convert the rest of the population to Judaism. The only problem was the deterrence of circumcision. You know, adult males like, oh no, I'm not going there. So, and it's also one of the reasons why many Jews were led into Christianity, because they didn't need to be circumcised. You know, for any, you know, it's a strong deterrent, and it does tend to encapsulate our religion. And then your question, Marty, why don't we repeat that?
Why are we admonished not to curse or revile our leaders?
Well, the simplest answer is because it disrupts the structure of our society.
Perfect. That's right.
Yeah.
And so God, here, the context of this is we've taken it out of context. Now we put it back in context. And all of these actions, how you deal with people, different classes in society, this dovetails into it. That it's, you have to look after the poor, the widower, etc. But at the same time, your leader is doing the best he or she can do. And so we should not enter into that feeling that we're going to say, we can disagree, but don't curse. Don't belittle. Okay. Yes, I apologize. David's on my mind. I'm sorry, Michael.
That's okay. That's okay. This whole, if I can step back, according to what you're speaking about now, I think this also all has to do with respect. Has to do with it. And so, let me see how I can put this. The past number of years, people have opinions. People have different opinions, and each opinion has to be respected. If you can disagree, and you talk about your disagreement, but it's got to be respectful. This is what has happened in our country over the past number of years, and I'm not going to get into politics on that, but it's going to sound as if, but I'm not. And what I see is what I personally have witnessed over the past number of years is a great disrespect in that area of politics. People disagreeing, see, with everything, and and if you have that disagreement, it's going to turn the country into turmoil. You see,
Okay.
that turmoil. So so what I'm getting at is the word disrespect or disrespect. You know, this is all part of what you're leading into now is very, very critical. In my opinion.
Well, these are different levels of it. That's right.
Right.
It's Suzanne and then Gail.
Oh, I wanted to mention something to Don. When I told Don that we don't proselytize, I was talking about present day, not thousands of years ago.
Okay. Suzanne, please.
This kind of reminds me a little bit about a story in the book of Daniel when there was, I guess, some kind of a fight, maybe a verbal fight over what to do with Moses's body. I think it might have been the Archangel Michael fighting with whom many would refer to as Satan, but not all, but it was fighting with some other entity over Moses's body. And instead of cursing that other entity, Michael took the high road, and the worst he said was, I rebuke thee. So, and with that, he gained control of Moses's body. And it also, I'm also reminded earlier in Exodus, after they crossed the Red Sea, Miriam was dancing because the Egyptians were dead, and God kind of scolded her for that, because everyone, no matter what our own personal opinion is all part of God's creation, and we have to, respect that. I mean, we may not like a particular individual. We may not think that individual is behaving in an appropriate manner, but that's pretty much not for us to say. That's it, for God to deal with. I mean, unless there's something. I mean, if that other person, somebody and is on some kind of a rampage or something like that, I mean, others would have to take action to prevent any more harm to anybody. In terms of cursing anyone or verbally putting them down or whatever, I think God wants us to respect one another regardless of our personal feelings.
Thank you very much. Yes, Gail.
I was just going to say, I mean, you're talking about an ideal world where, everything is pretty good and whatever. But occasionally we have leaders like Putin, for instance, that I don't think anyone respects him, nor do they need to. And there's a whole list over the years. So we had to be careful to be very general about this term respect.
Oh, yes.
There are people that are protesting in the streets of Russia right now.
Yeah.
Some are being jailed. I'm sure there's some are probably going to be killed because they're not respecting their leader. Now, I have an argument with your general term about respecting everybody. I don't think you can generalize about this. I really don't.
I agree. Thank you for what you said. there's a tipping point. There is a tipping point, and for different individuals, it will be at a different point in time. Good lesson, Gail. Thank you. Yes, Helene, please.
I hesitate to say this, but I will because I will. When we are born to die. God brings us into this world not to stay forever. Our bodies do not stay forever. We are born to die. And a baby who is cared for and loved and worshiped and brought up especially as a Jewish baby, becomes beautiful and becomes willing to give and to love and to receive love and to give love. And when bad things happen, it is nobody's fault. God is giving them a lesson. There's a lesson under everything that's bad. Every single thing that bad happens, we can find a lesson from God. And so for me, knowing what I know, who I am, is just me. When I die, I will be grateful for all the love that I have been able to pour into my life, for every mitzvah, for every good thing I have ever done, for every kindness, respect. Everything you're saying is so beautiful. And if I own this, do I own the fact that I am supposed to die? I am not supposed to live forever because I am a vibration, and only my soul, my deepest part of my body, will go up to heaven to be with God. The body itself will not. It's only a vibration. And I think we get confused. And if I die and I feel that I have accomplished my mission, because I believe that everyone has a job, that God puts us here to create something good for the world, good for ourselves, good for the world. And if I have helped to create that, even though I'm not going to be here with my body when I die, but my spirit, my soul will rise up to be with God on all the wonderful souls in heaven. And that is my belief.
Thank you. Very profound. Very, very well stated. Yes, Gail.
I was just going to say that I certainly know what suffering is when someone dies. You all know my circumstance. But everything in the world dies. Anything that has lived will die. I don't care if it's a tree, a grass, a flower, a person. Everything dies at some time. This is a natural process. It's not something to, as Helene, I think, was trying to say, it's not something to be afraid of.
Right.
It's to accept. That doesn't mean there isn't grief. I mean, we all know about that. You have to work through it, but it is a natural thing. You can't think of one thing in this world that doesn't die, including our planet at some time. Everything. So it's a natural process, not to belittle the grief. Believe me, I know that. So
I want to.
Very well stated, Gail.
Yeah, I want to thank Gail for qualifying the word respect. She's absolutely right, Gail. You're completely right on that, and I should have put that into my personal belief about respect, because that what you finished it was very, very important. So thank you for that.
Yes.
And Helene, thank you for your words that you just spoke. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Marty.
Thank you. And,
Eileen,
Grace,
Elena, I just want to quote my dear rabbi and teacher, Rabbi Zalman Schechter Shalomi. In your words, that we have to find what's our role, what he was saying, his words were, and I think it's wonderful, what for we were deployed in this world.
Yes.
We have to find that and to live with that. And it's not an easy task.
Yeah.
Thank you.
very
Thank you.
well put. Very
Thank
well put. Grace, did you have any ideas or comments that you would like to make?
Good morning. You know, I've just made some notes here about the sharings that people have provided. And I believe it's when Rabbi Miri was talking about, you know, the plurals and how we refer to God and Elohim, and it's encompassing the idea, and I got this in the sidebar of my study book. You know, when we revile someone, it's very disrespectful, no matter who they are, whether they're a leader or a fellow student in, you know, a shul. It doesn't matter. It's just something that we should not do to one another as human beings or in a society. It's basically, it looks like, you know, we're setting it up so that we all should look at one another as equals and has a right to an opinion, has a right to, you know, express that opinion, but yet we do want to be respectful in how we portray that. That's kind of the gist of what I'm getting. When we speak of, you know, a person as a human being is energy, you know, we're energy and we're vibrating and we're, you know, we're making sound or we're feeling emotions. You know, I talk with my hands because I studied ASL and I've been an interpreter in times of my life. So forgive me. I'm not saying, you know, this is thank you. And, you know, this is you're welcome, but this is emotion. So when we're emotional and we're distraught, anything can come out of our mouths, you know, because of what we're feeling or not feeling or wanting to feel or wanted to say or didn't say. And my internet connection has been really poor this morning, and I heard David share, and I felt his emotions. So we're all, you know, we're all taking that in too in this study today.
Exactly. Helene thank you.
Grace,
Helene.
Yes.
I read something just recently that touched me very deeply. And it said, each of us has been born as a divine being. Each of us is a divine being in this world. And any judgment we make of each other, negative, positive, is unfair. We are all divine. We are all trying our best to do good for ourselves, but for God first, then ourselves, and then the world. So I thank you for being a divine being.
Thank you. That was very beautiful, Helene.
Thank you.
This is something, so this is a very important one-liner. Henny Youngman would have been proud of this, that one verse has taken up so many different interpretations, but we're getting closer and closer to a better understanding by listening to each other's opinions and understandings. Interesting. So there's a good lesson here, as Helene would say. Please, Gail.
I have a question for Helene. Helene, you refer to the divine in us. Do you consider the divine in other sentient beings as well, or only people?
That's a good question.
Personally, I think it should be everything.
Yeah.
It is not just, and I think our discussion is now moving into Breshit. That
I think it is anything that is alive that God has given life to, a tree, a bird, a beautiful river. If all of this could be divine, I just don't know.
Well, if we're all one, everything is one and connected, nothing exists by itself, then I think you would have to say everything is divine.
yes,
Everything alive.
Well, yes.
The little tiny sparrows or the butterflies are divine.
Well, trees, flowers, plants.
Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson was on some show just yesterday, as he wrote a new book about how we're looking farther and farther back in, the evolution of the universe, whatever,
yes.
cosmos, whatever you want to call it. And he said that he was asked, well, what's the importance? Why do we care? And he said, because you go back and you realize that all of those atoms were there in the atoms from the very beginning, the Big Bang, the Simpson, whatever you want to call it, are in everything. Absolutely everything.
That's right.
He called it stardust. He said we're all made of stardust.
Stardust.
Oh, you saw the same interview, right? You must have seen the same interview.
Actually, that was coined by someone else.
Well, but
Carl Sagan. Okay,
Yeah,
and he's just repeating
yeah.
that. That's right.
Right. Yeah, but
That's
the fact that, why should we care about how far back we can look? That was the kind of the point he was getting at, is that because that's us. That's,
It's another way of looking at it. Yes.
Well, we think we're the center of the universe. Well, all we are is part of the universe, right?
That's a better way of looking at it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, Steve. Yeah.
if we are all created in the image of God, then that's what connects us to God.
Well, also, Miri mentioned a book, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I finally got it, Sapiens. I've only read maybe the first 20 pages because, I wasn't expecting 400 pages, but that we were a very insignificant animal for a long time.
Sure.
So why do we think we are, the penultimate of the universe? We're another branch on another tree of evolution. Who knows where we're going to go, how long we're going to be here.
We were never insignificant. We were just on the same level. Now we think we're something special.
Right. No, these are good way. This is a very good and important discussion. When man is made, biblically speaking, how is man created?
Well, breath or from the mud, from the dust, which one?
Both.
Yeah, exactly.
It's both.
But the dust, I like, the dust fits our discussion more, I think, because, we're, dust to dust, we
Yes,
started,
but the breath
is also, yeah.
Okay. What does breath carry?
Germs. No.
No, I'm not. It could. Let's put it this way. There is nothing that we know of other than our concept of God that is perfectly good. However, when we think we're doing something that is good, it can also turn out to be bad. How does God deal with that with the flood? Even God realizes that he did something that was too much, and he says he will never do that again. And as a symbol, there's a rainbow. So now, years ago, when we were talking about, we were discussing all of these things in Genesis and how they relate to the book of Exodus. Now you understand what I was getting after. These are other ways of looking at God, the world, and us. And I think that this is, if you look at all of these commandments, some people will call them the rules to live by. Not suggestions. These are not suggestions. When we think about it, these are very important concepts. Okay, when we get to the end, we're going to come back to that, what I just said. Yes, Don, and Don, and then Michael, please.
Yeah, in a couple of places, God admits he erred. But I always wondered who was his confidant? Who was God telling this to that could then record it so we can read it in the Torah? It's not. Who would that be?
Well, it's a combination. It's a combination. It starts with Moses. And other people who contributed to the writing of the scripture.
But the flood was long before Moses, so
that's the oral. Remember, right now, all of this is orally transmitted. And when we get into the book of Leviticus, we're going to see some changes in the way it's written, because man has to remember what was said several centuries earlier. So, yes, David.
Michael.
Please, I have David on my Michael. I'm being respectful.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's
please, Michael.
No, you don't have to apologize. That's not necessary. I adore you I love you very much, Marty, for having the thoughts for David at this time. So apology is not necessary. Not at all. So anyway, before Helene leaves, I just wanted to make this comment based on Helene, what you said about passing on and knowing that you did good things for people all your life. I need to say this to you. Recently, in the past 10 years, I was playing piano at La Posada, the retirement community here in Green Valley, Arizona. And one of the facilities that I was playing for was the Revile, a memory care facility where people were suffering from dementia and very serious Alzheimer's disease. And I would come in there and do what I did for an hour. And after I started, the relatives of these people started to come in. And as much as what I did for these people, it did 100 times more for me, because they may have not understood what I was doing, but they were enjoying it. I understood what I was doing. See, I knew what I was doing. And that gave me great pleasure that I was able to do that for these people. So, and I've done these things for many since I'm just a little kid. But so I just needed to say that to you. So I understood what you were saying extremely well. Thank you, Helene.
I want to show that you understood exactly what you were doing, and the goodness that poured out of you not only strengthened you, it helped them die. And this is the piece nobody talks about. The good from all of this in God not only goes up to heaven, it goes out to the universe. It goes out to the whole world and improves the world, because beauty and joy and peace and love live on.
Very good. Very good. Couple of other things. And any other ideas before we move on?
I'm going to have to leave. This is my strength is about over.
I understand.
Rosh Hashanah, to say everything to the people that I love so much. All I can say is my heart is with you, and the love I have is with you, and God is our Father, and He makes the decisions. Thank you for
Thank you so much, Helene. We love you.
Helene.
We love you, Helene.
Shana Tova, Shana Tova, Shana Tova.
Thank you, dear. Okay, I'm going to leave now. See if I can.
Oh, that's okay. There's one other comment I would like to make, and it involves several different passages in Torah. And without going into details, it deals with circumcision. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this also deals with respect. How does that relate to respect? Well, what does it represent? What does the Brit Milah, what does that represent?
Cleanliness.
Your connection via the covenant.
Yeah.
It's not just a ritual. Okay.
If you're going to go ahead, on the 8th day, you give the child to God, which is the day of the bris. So
that's right. And there's a redemption to
right.
be paid. That's right. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We're going to be discussing some of that very shortly. What does it also mean?
I don't know. Are you guys giving a little bit back? I don't know.
No, but well, in a way, maybe that the foreskin is a redemption, a payment for redemption. I don't know. Why do we do that? What if some of the other aspects of our religion, what do they look at here? Yes, Gail.
First thing that occurs to me, and I'm not trying to be funny, it's a visible sign of the contract, if you will.
Yes, it is.
Not that you reveal this to the public, but you know what I'm saying.
But there's one other aspect in my mind that is often unstated because it dovetails into certain activities. But the word respect is also part of the covenant. So why that part of the anatomy?
True urbu, be fruitful and have a lot of sex.
No, but it's with responsibility. And that respect is for the woman. We are going to be reading more about that. We're going to be reading about that. That
Marty,
entering into a covenant with your mate is also entering with the idea of respect for your mate. And as human beings,
Marty,
we
I
often
want to
disregard that part.
I want to introduce a couple of things that are not what you would call religious type of
Sure.
thing, that we're giving the child to God and that it's a mitzvah and so forth. We were tribes. We were a tribe. So let's not forget that. We were a tribe, just like most of the nations in the world were tribes, were families, tribes, and maybe dead nations. Now, how do you differentiate between tribes? You need a sign. If you look today in countries in Africa, some might have this kind of points, and some might have this, and some might have that. And the Hindus, we know that they have, Gail, help me out.
That's with the caste. That's
And,
right. A symbol of
yeah,
caste.
and we have also yarmulkes, and there are symbols that we belong. We belong to this. And within this, you have all the religious rites, R-I-T-E, and you have your God that you worship to. In my mind, there is a sign for good and for bad. Where is Michael? For good and for bad, because that's how we were differentiated from the non-Jews in Germany, in Poland, etc., etc. So that's another way of looking at it, but you're absolutely right. In Hebrew, we call it Brit Milah. In America, we use the Yiddish one, bris, which Brit is a covenant, as Gail mentioned. We have different covenants. Shabbat is a covenant, and Brit Milah is a covenant as well. And when we talk about covenant, is that we do something and we expect the other side to do for us as well. But remember, and this is one of the things about Judaism that really annoyed, I would use the other word, that really, really is a problem to those that don't belong to the tribe, that we were the chosen and we are different and so forth. Yeah, tribal why we remain different by this sign that you cannot repair. I think you cannot repair. Belonging to that group.
Okay, very, very well put. So I think this word respect involves a lot of things. And even when you think about a ritual, that's a symbol of respect as well. Because you're doing something that you were told to do, and you're doing it. So there's a lot at play here. So this single verse, as Don mentioned earlier, it is a very pivotal verse. Okay, look at where we've gone with this.
Yeah.
Okay,
An hour on one sentence.
that's right. Now, verse 28 only.
Okay,
Ricky, you're on.
I'm on. You shall not put off the skimming of the first yield of your vats. You shall give me the firstborn among your sons.
Okay. What is going on here?
Are we
Break
getting
it down
a class
into two separate.
Yeah, we're developing a class of Nazarene or priests or specials or primogenitor or all
Okay,
kinds of things that are coming out of the firstborn.
that's right. Okay, Gail and then Don.
I think Friedman says it best. He says, fulfillment and your flowing. Everyone is unsure what this means.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
The meaning
let's-
of, well, let me see what my stone says. Okay. wait.
okay. What about which part do you of this? There are two separate thoughts here, right? Two sentences. So which sentence are you going to address? The first or second? And I think that.
Well, I'm going to read another translation.
Okay.
Do not delay your fullness offering or your priestly heave offering. Okay, the firstborn of your sons shall you present to me. I just wanted to read the first fruits, okay, the Bikurim. All right, the first fruits which are picked when they become full and ripe and are presented to the Kohanim. That's right.
Help, Mary.
Well, what do you
Yeah,
think
well,
before
I
the
also
rabbi?
quoted Gail
Okay.
Friedman that we don't know what it means, you know, that, but in my mind is, first of all, the dim'acha means your tears. It's painful and you should not delay it. The pain against, they are that. And melatcha, that first word is comes from like fulfill, but it's like I think that the writer of this that you asked, Don, might have not done a very good job there. But in Hebrew we said to fulfill, and you say it in English too, to fulfill a mitzvah, to fulfill a job. It's your job to be attended to and so forth. And as you said, Marty, the commandments are not suggestions. This is what you should do. Fulfill your job, even if you're going to be teared. Usually it's the parents that cry more than the baby. But I really cannot help you out too much on this one. The only thing I want to mention, Dawn, since you keep asking those questions, why in the past, you need to recall that we are talking about a society that it's very hierarchical. Okay, there are bosses and so forth. In the top, you have Elohim that tells you to do certain things, and it goes down. And when you have that type of thing, when there is a melech, a king or so forth, you just believe. And this is how the tribe was arranged. You have the Nasi, you have the chieftains, and you have Moshe, and you have all kinds of things that go down. And obeying is a very clear thing that happens when you look at dictatorships. There is a lot of obeying, even if it's a non-popular dictator. The obeying part of it is something that it's the mitzvah, it's a commandment. It's not that you're nice and doing a mitzvah. It's a commandment. And if it's tribal, and in the top you have God. That's all I can say on this. It's not very clear.
Okay. Yes, Don, and then I'm going to point a few things out. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, are we on a verse that's in my translation that says you must give me the firstborn of your son?
Yes,
Okay.
it's verse 28.
Yeah, so, okay, so again, I find these verses very pivotal, and this, God never lifted his option to have a human sacrifice since the Akedah. You know, he let Abraham off the hook, but he never lifted his option to demand it. And so here he appears to be requiring the firstborn of everyone's son. And so my mind goes straight to human sacrifice as the
It doesn't
clearest.
say sacrifice,
It
Don.
doesn't say, that's right.
You're going to give to me, not sacrifice.
Right, but he associates it with cattle and sheep as also being sacrificed. So it's all in the same line of thought in that, you know, in that verse. So seems to me that this would be separated if there was a different meaning between sacrificing firstborn sons and sacrificing cattle and sheep. There would be some separation there, but there isn't. So I find it really troubling. And there are instances of human sacrifice throughout the Torah, kind of peppered in there. And every time I run into one, you know, I get a queasy feeling like, can't we just leave this idea behind now? But we can't, because it's in the commandment. And so coming back to what you said, Marty, I feel like we are blessed with the potential for a connection with God. But it's impure because we're human beings and we're fallible. And so the commandments are to help us keep that connection as closely as possible, to what God wants of us. That's how we keep the connection straight. So I find that's why I find this verses like this so difficult, because if keeping that connection clear means sacrificing our sons, literally, that it doesn't add up. I'll leave it at
No. The word is not sacrifice there. You shall give it to me. That's simple. You shall give it to me. Now, the issue is, Don, where and how our people worship God.
But do the same with your cattle.
Today.
You know, I can't get around that.
Okay.
No. What I'm saying is.
Go ahead, Mary. Finish your thought, and then I'm going to let.
I just want to clarify this because it's a very it's a very difficult thing. So Don, the translation is not sacrifice, but you shall give it to me. Now today there is a shul, there is a Bet Knesset, there is a synagogue. In the past there was the tent of meeting and then the temple. The idea was you give me to work for me in the temple. That's all. And Gail can talk to you about what we do with a Buddha. You know, they don't kill him. That job of worshiping God in that was very, very important. Just like these days, without, talking about myself, the rabbi in the congregation, that it's devoted, it was given, his job is to work for that's what he does. It's like a job given to me to work. And what I build this upon is it's a story called, and you're going to hear it during the holidays, Hannah and her son. Hannah, that she says she goes to the temple and she cries because she doesn't have a child. And then she has a child and she promises that if she has a child, she's going to bring it to Samuel, the prophet, to work in the temple. So to give the child is, God forbid, not to kill him. Absolutely no.
Okay.
And it's just an accident that the cattle and the sheep are in the same.
No, there's a symbolic reason, not a physical reason. It's spiritual. And we'll get into that. Yes, Ruth Ann. You're muted, Ruth Ann.
I can't believe you haven't made it any further today after I just braided 4 loaves of challah and did some other stuff in preparation for Rosh Hashanah. But first of all, I wanted to say I got an email from Rabbi Norman. The funeral service for Wendy will be Wednesday afternoon at Beth Shalom Temple Center.
Okay, he'll
that's all
fix
the-
the
where?
time. He'll fix the time.
We don't have a time yet.
Okay.
But
Okay.
That's all I know. You were copied on it, Marty, but I'm sure
It's
you haven't
okay.
had a chance to see it. So it'll be Wednesday
So-
afternoon. Mary, I'll make sure you know what time it is.
Okay, thank you. And where as well? Thank you.
Oh, it's gonna be at Beth Shalom. At
It's
BSTC.
Bet Shalom as a memorial,
Yeah,
not a funeral.
well, whatever.
From there, the funeral goes to the burial.
Yeah, but the funeral itself, the burial is in a cemetery out near Vale. And it's actually a Catholic cemetery that's kind of interdenominational from what I understand. And so they're going to do everything at Beth Shalom. And then the family will just go out.
And then they go to the burial.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
So
Okay.
all this
Gotcha.
will be worked out. I'm sure the rabbi will be giving us more information for those that will want to attend the service, and for those that will want to go to the cemetery.
Cemetery. Yeah, I'm not sure how many people are going to be going to
Sure.
the cemetery from what
That's
you were
right.
saying. But second, what we were talking about here on the 8th day would be the circumcision of a newborn male. And at that point, he'd be entering the covenant. Couldn't you
Mhm.
say at that point that that's giving the child to God?
Mhm. You could.
So it's not about sacrifice. That's how you're giving this child to God through entering the covenant. Does that make it sound better, Dawn?
Well, you're speculating. I'm just looking at the verse itself and how in the same verse, we've got giving the firstborn sons and giving sheep and cattle. In the temple before that, at the ark, the sheep and the cattle were killed. It just seems to me that you would want to separate those sacrifices very clearly, so there's not even the hint that sons are being asked to be sacrificed the same as livestock. So we can speculate all we want. I'm just saying.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, Don. That's only one way of looking at it. I mentioned something else. There are several things that are at play here that are not physical in any way, shape, or form. And we'll come into that. Yes, Grace.
Thank you. Okay, so I see that in this whole sentence, if we tie it together, I see this symbolic issue of recognizing this all comes from the true source, which is God, right? We have to acknowledge the true source of it being God, the baby or the first fruits or, the original source, God, right? That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying isn't that the symbolic issue here where that's spiritual because what is that statement? dust to dust, ashes to ashes. Everything comes from God, the breath of life, the trees, the cattle, mammals, the human. So I'm thinking that we need to recognize the true source of this life. We're not sacrificing that life, just recognizing the source of it.
So if we
Just a
were,
second, Marty.
yes,
Marty, just a second. Let's think for a moment into the English word. Don, what's the source of the word sacrifice in English?
Satan.
No, sacra is religious, isn't it? Part of the word of, sacrament, sacrifice, sacred,
Sacred.
Yeah,
Sacred.
yeah.
That's it.
Exactly. So that's what Marty is saying into the spiritual part, making this person sacred, just like the high priest, just like the Levites, that the job of this guy is becoming sacred into the breed, into the covenant.
But we haven't progressed to the purely spiritual here, because we know God would demand sacrifice of a child because he asked that of Abraham. And we know God is not shrinking from extreme violence because of what he did with the flood and to the Egyptians and to the people of Sodom. So we know God can be extremely violent, and he hasn't relieved. I don't see any relief from that possibility yet, which is why I question what the meaning of this verse is, because we haven't reached the purely spiritual or symbolic or metaphorical stage yet.
oh, yes, we have. Yes, we have, John.
Where?
We've been discussing it. Is respect physical? Is
Well,
responsibility
it's
physical?
not in the text. It's not in, I don't see it yet in the text. I see we're imposing our wishes on it. But.
No. That the words are there not to just read. The words are there to think about what they may mean.
Okay, well,
and we can take it as the way it's written, but there's more, when we see it in context, it changes everything. For example, okay, it says that in verse 28, you shall not put off the skimming of your first yield of your vats.
Yeah.
Okay, and this has been interpreted not only for the making of beer and wine, but also the crops. That's the standard. So you want to, that is the most important aspect of it. Children, your firstborn is most sacred. It shows you that, one, the woman you have chosen and you are fertile, you're going to bear, that's a blessing. It also means that you have a responsibility to that child. Just as you would hope God's favor, that child becomes sacred. Okay? The animal is sacred, and how you deal with the animal. We've been reading it all along in context. You don't want to mix the types of animals. You don't want to defile an animal and change it by having sex with it.
But we do want to kill it as a sacrifice.
Sometimes that's necessary. But it doesn't mean you have to sacrifice it physically.
Don,
We're giving it.
just Another that I forgot to mention this. The temple doesn't exist, so you don't have to give your son to work in the temple. So that's number one. Number two, there is a ritual called Pidyon Aben. I don't know if you heard it. Pidyon Aben, which is the redemption of the child, in which today, instead of giving the child to the temple, we pay money. And it's called just to save the child, just to take it back. And it's called Pidyon Aben for the firstborn. And that firstborn need to be born vaginally. I, for example, had the firstborn with a C-section, so that doesn't count. But you pay money to redeem. Pidyon is to redeem your firstborn.
Mhm.
So we fixed your problem.
I don't think so. That's all right. That's, I don't want to hold us up here, but I don't feel like my problem's fixed, but I appreciate.
Well, why would you, to me, there's a deeper meaning here. Gail?
I'm just going to say, Don, you're serving that idea of tea. Remember when I told you, you let things come and go, but don't serve the tea, the thoughts?
I'm sorry, Gail?
I said, excuse me. I said, remember several weeks ago, I said something about when you have a thought, let it come and go. Don't serve it tea.
Right.
Well, what is another way of looking at the first part of this verse? One way is if put it in terms of ourselves. What would happen? What will we say to the person who always is taking the choicest part, the best cut of meat, the best of the crop? You do it all the time when you're picking fruit in the farm, in the market. Okay, you're looking for the best of of whatever they have. But suppose the grocer himself picked the first that came off the line for himself. Wouldn't that be selfish? Wouldn't that be disrespectful of others? And also the animals. The firstborn is the choicest. Why is it the choicest? Whether it's a plant or an animal.
Well, in the first part, you said the grocer. If we
Yeah.
looked at the grocer, if he picks the first, he's in business to serve the public. The grocer is in business to serve the public. So therefore, I think he has a responsibility to
There you
let
go.
to let the best go for the people he's in business for.
Okay. I remember my grandmother when she made chicken fat.
Mouse.
Wow. I miss it.
Malts.
I miss it. Now, what was she doing there? How did she fulfill her commandment?
With schmaltz?
Yeah.
Schmaltz, yeah.
Did she just make it for herself?
No,
No.
she made it to the
No,
family.
for the chopped liver. She put it in the chopped liver.
Yeah. That's right. And it was used in many different ways, but as you said, it was for the family, not for her. Okay. So when you made wine and beer, is it just for you, or is it for others also?
It's for everybody.
It's for the family and everyone else. That's right. And so this makes sense to me if we look at it in that light. The other thing is if you deal with your children the same way, this dovetails into not just giving birth to the child, but proper raising of the child. And I'm going to leave that word proper up to your imagination. Okay? It has many connotations. So that what? You're making that child sacred. You're going to teach that child. That's what that's what we're chosen for. Oh, that's why we're told to respect our parents.
Well, you're
Teach them
making
wisely.
Yeah, you're making the child kosher,
In a way.
Which means proper.
Yes. Yes. So before we just dismiss it as, oh, what are we doing? So it's cruelty to animals, it's cruelty to people and everything. Wait a minute. And the plants? Why is it all lumped together? It's all to teach us something. Yes, Gail.
I was just, when you're talking about choosing, I remember what is indelibly imprinted in my brain is when I was growing up, if someone passed you a plate of cookies, you took the one nearest you. You did not look to see which was the biggest or the best. You took the one nearest you. Boy, that was put into my head more than once, believe me.
Yes. Yes, that's one way of looking at this. That's right.
You don't look for the one that has more chocolate chips.
Remember, it's okay to share a box of chocolate with Gail. She's not going to poke her finger in the bottom of each one of the chocolates till she finds the one she wants.
That was a huge lesson in my house. Was one of the first things I learned. Yeah, very.
Family eats last when you have company.
That's right.
That was. I watched one family try to teach their little girl that she does not take all the strawberries.
So when you pass the plate around, the host or hostess picks up the plate and passes it to others first.
Right.
Then we call them a good host or hostess. It's not just, so now you see that this is much more. It's affecting how we live. So that's why I wanted to bring that out, that this is much more. If one rule is for how we behave in dealing with our family and our society, our community, we have to look at the rest of it the same way. They're not just here to pick and choose and pick out certain phrases. There's always a deeper meaning. And I think it's our responsibility, out of respect to the written word, what is said. By the way, a very modern philosopher, Saul Kripke, just passed away. He was written up in the New York Times. Okay. He's made us look at words this way. He's encouraged people to do this. That's part of his basic philosophy. And if you haven't run into him, it is worthwhile. And in the philosophy class that I teach, we have been on his writings for over a month now, because he has been extremely influential. All right. Very, very good man. Anyway, getting back to this, so what we've been doing throughout the past 4 or 5 years, whatever it is now, I don't know. It's been a long time. That's what we're doing. And so we are learning that word has a denotation and a connotation. And sometimes the connotation is just as important as to what it denotes. Okay, and that's all. Another way of saying it, what did the people who wrote the Constitution, what did they really mean by it? And why did they add amendments to the Constitution? Okay, we call those the Bill of Rights. When you get into that discussion, this is going to make more sense. Okay. Now, so we've discussed the, we've really covered the waterfront. Rather than go on, because each one of these next few commandments are going to be, they're going to dovetail into this. Well, we do have a little time because we've said, why don't we go ahead and finish with verse 29? We have a little time. We can do that because I'm not going to repeat myself.
Okay. You shall do the same with your cattle and your flocks. 7 days it shall remain with its mother. On the 8th day you shall give it to me.
Okay. Rather than rehashing what we discussed already, what is this 8th day? What's going on here? And why should it remain? Why should the animals remain with the mother? We've heard this before, and we had the discussion before with don't mix, don't boil a lamb in its mother's milk.
Right.
We had that discussion already.
I missed that.
So what's going on here?
Well, I assume it has to do with compassion, but I'm not.
That's one. That's a very important aspect to it. But why the 8th day? Mary was addressing this before. It's sacred. When do we do the Brit Milah?
Well, the 8th day. Could that all tie back to the original that God created everything in 7 days? So this is the next day?
This is the next day.
I mean, I don't know. It's just why 8? I mean.
Well, first of all, we can be very practical.
Yeah,
and
but they're not weaned in 8 days. So, I mean, I don't understand otherwise.
However, how long does a mother remember that it has?
Remember what?
In the animal world, how long does can it remember physically first?
Knows.
You want to hear the horror stories about cattle, and when they give birth to a calf and it's taken away from the mother, they scream for days.
That's right.
Days.
Exactly.
Which is why you should not eat veal, folks.
No, I can understand where Gail is coming from on that, but this is true. And like anything else, in those 8 days, the animal is being cared for, but in 8 days, it can also suddenly fall and be blemished after 8 days.
Well, why wouldn't it be blemished within the first 8 days? I mean, that
it could.
Yeah,
it could.
That seems irrelevant to me.
Okay.
Marty, what if we go back to who and what and how is God for you? And on the 5th day, that animal becomes really special and is going to be in your herd just the special one, the sacred one, because we gave it to God. Instead of looking at it as a sacrifice, Gail, which it's probably more direct translation or understanding, But I would like to see it that way. It's the first one. I care for him more. So, okay, I'm going to bless him. I'm going to give a blessing and it becomes sacred. And whatever God you believe in is going to make him special. You can get that. I mean, I can get the way to see it that way. Giving it to God doesn't mean physically.
Mm-hmm.
In the animal world, this I found interesting. When a zebra gives birth, the mother shields the baby from the other zebras because that imprint is there's an imprint in the baby that it should not get lost with other zebras. So the baby zebra will always know its mother from the other zebras.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's also 8 days that is a shield. So that's quite remarkable. That and it stays close to the mother because it's the mother who gave the birth to the baby, and that's the closest. The mother's the closest to the baby. So
By the way, this also holds for penguins.
yes.
Yes, Gail.
I was just thinking about horses. It's why you never have to put a rope or a halter on a colt. And you can take the mother any place and the colt will follow right next to the mother. You never have to tie them together. Take them any place.
If we dig deeper into what we're saying, we've rehashed what we've said about the spiritual connections. That's all I'm going to say. I'll let each of you, take it the way you want. But we've basically rehashed the spiritual connections. So if God looks at life as sacred, we're to look at life as sacred. That's where I'm going to leave it. Shabbat Shalom.